St. Croix County, Wisconsin. We're in Hudson at the St. Croix County Government Center, room 1400. It's 8:30 a.m. by the clock on the wall, which we'll use as our official time. Today is August 28th, 2025. This is the Zoning Board of Adjustment for St. Croix County. In a moment, we'll introduce ourselves, but I am calling the meeting to order. My name is Buck Malick, and I am a so-called citizen member, a resident of the town of Hudson, the township of Hudson, Wisconsin. Mr. Peterson?
Dave Peterson, citizen member, town of Kenny Connect.
Greg Telejohn, St. Croix County Supervisor, District 14, representing Aaron Prairie, Richmond, and a little bit of Warren Township.
Steve Smart, citizen member, Hudson Township, non-voting alternate.
Joe Miller, citizen member, town of Hammond.
The staff folks to introduce themselves too.
Mike Wozniak, Land Use Administrator.
Jason Cheezitt, Community Development Director.
Julie Peterson, Community Development.
Thank you all. We do have a quorum. For those who might wish to speak today, and we have two matters of business. One will involve a hearing, an opportunity for the public to speak. The other will not involve a hearing. For those who wish to speak, we ask that you please sign in first on a paper that's over on a little table by the wall to my left. When you do that, you will be taking an oath that any testimony you give will be the truth. So we will not then have to interrupt the proceedings to administer the oath. The board has some minutes from our last meeting. And as is our custom, unless there are edits to be made to those minutes, they will be deemed approved. So I ask you, board members, do you have any edits or changes, amendments to offer? No. No. Well, then we'll consider the minutes of the July 24th meeting to be approved, to be deemed approved. I'm supposed to make a declaration that I believe this meeting was properly noticed and published. That is to say that for the two laws that apply to our types of meetings, that we met the requirements with regard to newspapers and hanging on bulletin boards and things like that. I believe that to be true, but if there is at this time any reason anybody knows of to think that there has been a defect in the notices and publication, this will be the time to bring it up because it might cause us to have to interrupt our proceedings and back up a step. All right, that's great. We did not have that for the first time in the last 20 years. We are ready now for the public hearing on the lodge matter.
Good morning, Board of Adjustment members, Mr. Chair. I'll note that for our first item on the agenda, the variance request from Anthony Lodge in the town of St. Joseph. I'll note Mr. Lodge is present and may choose to speak at hearing or would be available to answer any questions the board may have that he may be able to better answer than staff. Let me just pull up our staff report here. This item for your consideration and to hold a public hearing today is a variance request, again, from Anthony Lodge at property at 26 Rainbow Street in the Holton area of the town of St. Joe. The reason for consideration is the properties in our Lower St. Croix Riverway Overlay District, rural residential zone, and there is a side yard setback requirement of 25 feet that Mr. Lodge is asking for a variance to that requirement. I'll note that the reason to reduce the side yard setback is this is a non-conforming lot, really a non-conforming neighborhood, although not all the neighborhood is in the Riverway. The property is constricted by a part of the DOT Old State Highway 64 easement where now the loop trail runs, but it's very broad right-of-way for the highway there, and it encroached into what I think prior owners and maybe initially Mr. Lodge thought was his property. So included with the staff report in the packet was a copy of the application submitted by Mr. Lodge. Just a little background on this. Mr. Lodge has submitted this request because he wishes to construct a 30 by 50 foot accessory structure. It would be a detached garage. He's wanting to replace an existing detached garage, which actually straddles the property line of that right-of-way, former highway right-of-way that I talked about. The property is located 1,050 feet from the ordinary high water mark and has no visual impact from either the ordinary high or 250 feet out in the river. Really, there's no visual impact concerns with this request. Just some additional background on this particular street. There's only two properties, 26 Rainbow, Mr. Lodge's property, and the neighboring property, 28 Rainbow Street, are the only two properties at the location that are located within the Riverway overlay because of the distance back from the river. The existing dwelling is set back approximately 2.5 feet from the eastern boundary of the lot line, the landward side lot line for reference, and over 40 feet from the top of slope to the DOT easement. I'll note that during a map of survey in 2017, the existing garage was discovered to be over the property line between Lot 6 and Lot 7, the DOT property. And the easement removed over 40% of Lot 6 property when State Highway 64 was constructed. A little more background here. The variance would enable the applicant to build an accessory structure behind the dwelling and remove the existing garage to correct the non-conforming structure's placement. The proposed accessory structure would not be visually conspicuous from the riverway. The variance from the 25-foot side yard setback allows the building to be placed where it has no impact to the riverway and still not encroach on the 40-foot top of slope setback. The applicant has proposed stormwater mitigation on the structure and yard with gutters and a rain garden to ensure runoff is controlled and no erosion occurs. Typically, those requirements are administered through a follow-up land use permit handled administratively by staff. And the applicant is working with the Wisconsin DOT to redraw the property boundary with the small remnant of Lot 7 added to Lot 6. This is kind of going on separately and does not affect the proposed accessory structure location. Just a general location map of location. This is the old lift bridge or now loop trail. And you can kind of see where this lot is. Little more zoomed in view here with the dwelling, and you can see that existing detached garage kind of straddling a property line. And understand these boundaries in GIS are not that accurate in this area also. So certainly not survey detail. A little ortho view of with kind of roughed in that property boundary where you can see the dwelling and that existing garage structure. This is a site plan Mr. Lodge submitted. He noted an area for a future sanitary system area and where he would like to construct the 30 by 50 foot garage. You can see the existing detached garage noted on here as well as his dwelling.
May I interrupt you right
Certainly.
there? On that picture that you're showing us, which must be page, what page number is that? Page 18. Just, there's an arrow and the number 40 feet drawn in there between what must be the northwest corner of the garage and a line marking apparently the edge of the right-of-way. Is that 40 feet also marking the edge of the bluff in this area, which is an artificial one created for the highway apparently?
Yeah.
Is that what that means?
Steph, do you?
So that, the 40 foot there, that's a rough line, just showing the edge of the garage to
Why don't you come up to the mic, Stephanie? This is Stephanie Homeschild worked on this, one of our staff, and has a little more in-depth familiarity with the site. Go ahead, Steph.
So having the room, the building shown with the setbacks from the top property line close to the house, it's kind of a roughed-in 40 foot. There is room to adjust for that, but it does show that it does go into that smaller easement area on that lot 7, but that is kind of an adjustable area, so it hasn't been, we don't have hard site plans yet for this, so it's just that rough estimate right now.
Well, what I'm getting.
Yeah, it is where it drops off, yes.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is, one of the questions that always enters our mind when we're asked to do a variance is the applicant asking for minimal relief? Are they, asking for only the amount of variance that they need to accomplish all the relevant purposes? And that, if that 40-foot note there indicates that it's necessary to go that far to the east with a proposed new building in order to be 40 feet from a bluff, that's a factor in favor of granting the easement as proposed. Did my mic just cut out? No, you're good. Okay, good. So that's what I'm trying to get at is the 10-foot instead of a 25-foot setback that the applicant is requesting, add the minimal relief based on being 40 foot from that break in the land, that bluff, artificial bluff?
So when we went out on site, the house itself sets back at 2.5 feet from the property.
Oh, I know. And why would the garage not be as close? But does the garage, in fact, meet that minimum requirement?
The new garage would. So depending, Mr. Lodge wanted to have the variance through the county first before he worked with the town of St. Joseph for their variance setback as well.
Yeah, okay.
Mr.
So
Chair,
the
I can
answer is
answer.
yes, that is the break line of the bluff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, we would have had
We don't have to make a big deal of it. I just wanted to establish that little point. I didn't mean to interrupt your whole flow, Mr.
No, that's okay.
Well,
It
yeah.
likely would have been more of an issue, which it was not with DNR, if it was not going to conform to that setback from top of bluff. So this proposal would. Just a few photos for your view. From the sort of back of the lot, looking towards the street on the right here, you can see the house and that existing detached garage. And this is another view from probably the east side of the house, looking towards the river.
And again, the photographer was probably standing on about the place that has been marked on the map as a potential alternate site for a pout system if the existing pout system failed.
Yeah, back here.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Got it in the record.
No, that's good clarification. Just a couple other photos, kind of the side yard between the neighboring lots, 26 Rainbow, Mr. Lodge's property, and 28 Rainbow Street. Here, get which one is which, but and then proposed location of the accessory structure. As we typically do, we've included a slide that references the three criteria established in the Supreme Court ruling, and then the variance criteria from the Riverway Ordinance, which you've seen many times before, that are basically your criteria for considering variance. And we have prepared well, I should note that DNR has provided written consent on this one. And they basically, Ms. Langenberg, who's reviewing these with DNR, did not have any concerns. We had a kind of virtual meeting with her after the application was received, just because she had some questions about it, and then more recently received confirmation of that written consent. So we don't have any issues with DNR on this. I think because it was that internal, like landward side lot line, and that 25-foot is more of a county initiative rather than a NR 118 requirement. There's just no concern on this one by DNR. After you open the hearing and take any comments or any questions, I should mention just two additional things actually before we go into that. One is the issue of whether the board would have a requirement, if you're inclined to act to approve this, for removal of the detached garage. Mr. Lodge has represented this, that it's his intent to remove the existing one, which straddles that lot line, if he's able to move forward with the new one. In conversation with me, he indicated that, you know, it was his preference maybe if that's not a requirement of action, because he's kind of using that as leverage. He'd like to get maybe some of that right-of-way vacated, easement vacated, so that it could be become part of his property, and work something out with DOT. As far as the county's concerned, I think we understood this, that if the new one's constructed, the old one would be removed. So that's how we set it up. But ultimately, whether you want to include a requirement, if you're inclined to act to approve this, that it be removed, then that would be up to the Board of Adjustment. When after hearing, when I distribute the copy or pull it up of the draft decision document, you can see how staff worded that. The other issue is the exact variance you're granting. Staff set this up. Our understanding was that the desire was to have this structure, this detached garage, to be able to go to within 5 feet of the east property line. In just a little dialogue before the meeting with Mr. Lodge, I mean, he indicated that he wants to have 10-foot separation between the neighbor's structure and his structure, which could allow even less than 5 feet. I would say from a staff standpoint, granting a variance from the 25 to allow to 5 is a pretty significant variance, and that allows reasonable access to on Mr. Lodge's property to maintain the structure. So as staff, we feel probably it's warranted to not necessarily go closer, although his house is closer. I believe it's 2.5 feet back, because there's a lot of conformance in that older neighborhood on Rainbow Street or that general area of Holton. So again, that's up to the Board of Adjustment. How much variance you're willing to grant, if you are in fact willing to grant the variance.
Were those ideas submitted to the DNR?
We didn't have that
That's-
nuance to the DNR. We
No,
basically
well,
gave Susan the application that Mr. Lodge submitted.
Yeah. If that had been, I mean, if we were going to think about that, we'd have to send it back in good faith to the DNR, because if they veto it, it's vetoed. If that's a factor to us, it's certainly a factor to the DNR. And it goes to the question of requesting minimal relief, among other things. You haven't talked about why we have setbacks. This could be a good time. If my memory serves me right, we have setbacks for the purpose of, in a case like this, where there's not visibility of the river, we have side yard setbacks primarily for emergency access and fire leaping from one property to the next. If I've forgotten something, fill me in.
Well, the only thing I would say about that, when it comes to the riverway, is we have a greater side yard setback in the riverway than we do in our residential, our R1 or R2 residential districts outside the riverway. And I believe, I wasn't involved when that was established, but I believe that a lot of the riverway lots are perpendicular to the river. And part of the reason for that greater separation was, at least on some of them, you have views to the river. This isn't a situation based on the configuration of this lot where that is really an issue in this situation. But the other side of it is creating for drainage, for being able to maintain structures, or for fire safety, some minimum setbacks are generally required. And typically, in our other districts, 10 feet, 15 feet, but not 25. But having at least 10 feet between structures on adjoining property provides that fire safety and ability to have emergency access in case of fire or damage, storm damage, that sort of stuff.
One other thing before I turn you over to other board members. What has been the discussion with regard to surface water management with this property? Are we likely to be having a voluntary agreement by this applicant to catch the stormwater runoff from the roofs and other impervious surfaces that would deal with a 25-year storm?
We haven't broached that standard with the applicant. This property is quite a distance from the river. And the applicant has agreed to manage the stormwater through downspouts, through rain garden. But if the board is inclined to set a specific storm event, I think you can dialogue about that and provide direction. From a staff standpoint, I think we would say we don't see that higher standard quite as critical on this property as opposed to the Rome property that where literally the dwelling was right at the ordinary high water mark of the lake. But that's at the Board of Adjustment's discretion.
But this property has the potential to drain to that very bluff that we talked about a moment ago, the highway cut. And last time I was on it, that loop trail runs right down to the bridge. The gutters on each side of the old highway conduct water as fast as water can run. Right
Once it
straight
drops,
to the river.
it's a steep drop down the slope, and then there's swales on either side.
So it's a long ways, but on the other hand, it's a very steep area. And it does drain to the river. It's not like it drains to an inland closed depression from an ice, from the ice ages, that kind of thing. It's connected to the river. So stormwater runoff from the impervious surface on this lot matters. And as a part of approving a variance to, vary dramatically from 25 feet to 10 feet, it seems to me, and I speak for no one but myself, of course, at this point, but it seems to me that getting stormwater management to deal with all the impervious surface, the new and the old, and of course removing the old garage. But that's enough of a soliloquy on that. What is our law with regard to accessory structures? Are people allowed to have as many accessory structures in the riverway as they like?
We don't limit the number. I mean,
Isn't there some size limit on accessory structures? It came up in another case a few months ago.
We don't limit the size of accessory structures. Sometimes there's practical limit based on the amount of impervious surface and the handling of the stormwater or meeting setbacks. A lot of the riverway lots are constricted by slope and setback. Yeah, it's a little different here. A lot of jurisdictions have, outside of agricultural buildings, they establish size.
A cumulative square footage? We don't have that requirement here? Okay. Well, I continue to think we couldn't very well agree to leave the existing garage without resubmitting this to DNR, because that's got to have been a factor in their decision. Thinking. Anyways, other board members, questions for the Staff here for Mike?
I guess I'm thinking too, in reference to talking about reducing that setback, less than 10, wouldn't that also be affecting the neighbors because it was published? It's different than what was published, and they would have to be republished.
I guess the neighbor might have an idea about that, might be adverse. Not that the neighbor can tell us what we can do, that it's not our job, but it's a factor. And certainly if we would do it for this person, we might have other people coming in asking for the same thing. So it has broader implications than just the one case. And as you say, it was published one way. Mm-hmm.
We have
Okay.
not heard from the neighbor, just to clarify
Yeah,
that.
okay. Anything else, board members? No? Okay. All right, you're finished presenting, Mr. Wozniak, are you, and Steph? Mhm. All right, do you want to speak, Mr. Lodge? This would be your opportunity if you wish to address us.
Sign the paper?
Yep, sign the paper, yep. You don't have to speak, but if you want to.
Got a couple things.
Yeah.
Hello, my name's Tony Lodge. Appreciate your time. Couple things, the drainage, right now I have about an 18-inch culvert that goes from the top of the flat, my driveway, goes down that whole bank and it discharges right kind of down by the Welcome to Wisconsin sign that's down there. That takes all the water, not all the water, but a lot of the water from the whole paved road for 200 feet. It all comes down and through my gravel driveway and then down this culvert. All my property water from my home and my existing garage then also kind of shoots over there down this culvert. I don't know if that's better for the river or not, but it's certainly better for erosion of the bluff. As far as the impervious surfaces on my new structure, I'm all for trying to capture this water, and if I can pump it into my gardens or something, that's my intention. I don't want to do a bunch of riprap or whatever if I don't have to, but I'm certainly open to containing it and repurposing the rainwater. So I don't know if you have any other questions or not for me, but.
What do you know about the soil of your property? Have you got rock close under the surface or?
Well, it's down about 3 feet. I had a perk test and had the crew out to do the earth science for the future drain field system if I need to, so that, I have all that information.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's whatever the dirt is, how clay or how molty it gets, I don't know that, but rock's down about 3 feet.
And that's in the area of your future proposed pout system. And that is presumably a part of the area where we would direct any rain gardens or ways to soak in the water now, isn't it?
I've got visions, my neighbor's property is about 4 feet higher than mine. And then there's a little step down full of rubble and bushes and weeds, and you saw one of the pictures showed it. My goal, if I was gonna put in a new system or even my new building, would be to fill in that area between my new building and say my neighbor's building and get rid of all just the place where you can't walk or mow or do anything. And I've talked to my neighbors about that, and they're on board with that. And if I did this new mound system in the back, I would try to hide that mound kind of into the side of that bluff or the neighbor's transition. I'm not a real big fan of mounds in the backyards of people's homes. It's kind of unsightly, but that's my vision for the future anyway.
Yeah, so let me see if I'm understanding this. You propose to kind of raise the floor of your new building by about 4 feet?
I'm gonna dig it in.
Your neighbor is higher than you are, and you want to make that 4-foot step less visible by filling on your property, right?
Correct. So I probably would have my garage buried in the hill to keep it at the same height as my driveway, where the floor of the garage is not up on a hill.
I see.
And then I would have
You'd-
put concrete retaining type on the backside of my garage to take any dirt I want to backfill in, if that makes sense, between my neighbor and me.
So in that 10-foot stretch, you'd put a retaining wall and raise some dirt on the neighbor's side of the retaining wall.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I
Correct.
think I get the
Retaining
picture.
wall being the back wall of my garage. Not a separate retaining wall, but boom, I just build a more substantial structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really have all the design because I don't know what I'm allowed to do yet, so I haven't spent a lot of energy on trying to, facilitate that, but.
Everybody got the picture? I don't see that it's relevant to our decision yet, but I'm trying to think as fast as I can.
And, excuse me, the reason for the maybe less than 10 feet part of it, I understand the 10 feet of separation between the neighbor's building and mine, and whatever, that's good reason, I'm all in. If I go less, if I'm stuck at 10 or 15 or geez, then that 40 foot from the slope line comes into play if I keep pushing my building toward the river. So that's where that kind of came from.
So you've done no landscaping estimates at this point on how to deal with the water runoff from your new building? Your thought is that you'd install it with gutters, of course, you'd put rain barrels under it and capture what you could to reuse or repurpose, as you say, the water. But the overflow from the rain barrels has not been, you haven't started making plans on that yet.
I was just informed that gutters and a rain garden or a pool, ponding area or something was what really was expected of me. So I haven't thought about it again.
That's fair, yeah, I'm not casting judgment, it's just,
Right.
if you had some thoughts, I wanted to try to get them on the table so that we could try to integrate them with a good plan for you.
I'm assuming I will continue with the drainage down that 18-inch corrugated drain that now takes water. I would assume that I would just kind of keep my flow going toward that drain.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be allowed to increase the flow. It's a kind of a fundamental principle of American law, if I can sally into that area, that people are allowed to continue to have runoff forever at the volumes that pre-existed, but when they create something new on their land, when they create more impervious surface, they need to deal with it on their own land, not increase the water flow that someone else has to deal with, either the public authorities or the neighbors or whatever, just as your neighbor would not be allowed to do something on his land and make more water flow onto your land.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's no real surprise there, I guess. What were you gonna do with the site of the existing garage when you take that out? Were you planning to make that into your garden, or?
No, a lot of that'll end up being driveway to get back toward my
No,
new
sure
garage.
enough. Yeah, you're gonna need a turnaround or a backing space or
Right.
something, aren't you?
Right.
You'll end up with a two-door garage, two car doors wide, or three, four? What do you, what is this, 15 by 30 or something like that?
50 by 30.
50 by 30, yeah,
Good sized garage. It's
sure. Those are,
three car garage for sure.
okay, so you'll have, an apron there that's at least 3 cars wide and have to have the area to turn around. Well, there'll be no there'll be a substantial net increase in impervious surface when we think about the roof of the new building and we think about the driveway and all that. So you'll have quite a lot of water to deal with on your own property. Normally, we strive when we are granting variances or conditional uses, we strive to get people to deal with the old water runoff also, or the runoff from the pre-existing impervious surface, in this case, your house and your present driveway. So that if that was previously not being conducted to places where it could infiltrate near the place where it fell, it would after the design was finished and the construction was finished, so that we end up having less water running off towards the river as a result of all the construction that's going on anyway and the earth moving that's a natural feature going on there. The other case we're going to be talking about later today is exactly of that kind of situation where vast improvements in infiltration of the water are a significant part of our reasons for approving. In that case, we're going against the DNR's recommendation in large part because of these improvements in getting places for the water to soak in. If you have rock underlying the surface at a depth of 3 feet, and if it's not fractured rock, the ability to soak in water is kind of limited. We don't have a lot of evidence here before us today on that, except for your own testimony about where they did the test in that area of the Pouts system. Did they do 4 holes there at the 4 corners of the proposed alternate site?
No, they did 3, and wherever they selected those 3 locations, I don't know what their
But the net effect was that of those 3, they found rock 3 feet down. Am I understanding your testimony right?
correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know about in all of them, but in certainly one, at least, there was 3 feet. And
Have those
according to
been
the-
filed in our department already, or they don't get filed until there's an actual septic permit application, I guess, right? Yeah,
Not
so
filed.
we wouldn't have it yet
We may or may not.
available to us. Mhm.
And part of that, the Pouts system is designed, okay, well, wait, how do I get the pipe from here to there and then so it might evolve before I do get a permit. If I need to do a new system, I don't know yet, but part of that will depend on what I end up with for a garage.
Yeah, you'll almost certainly have to run a pipe under your new driveway, won't you?
Yeah.
But it'll have to be a mound system because rock is so close to the surface, right?
Correct.
So it'll be pumped. So I guess that helps to deal with risks of freezing in the winter and such.
Right. Their design had the tank, 1,500 gallons or whatever the tank size was, pretty close to where the existing garage is now. And then they'd pump it back up. They want to be low with the tank and then they got to pump it back up to the mound.
Sure.
So that's what their design was. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't want to drive over my tank if I can help it. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Are you pretty confident that the you haven't started talking to a demolition contractor, have you, about the removal of the old garage? You're not up to that stage yet?
I'm a contractor, so I'm pretty sure I can
Oh,
figure out how to get rid of that. I'd like to have one of my neighbors. It's a nice garage. It's just small.
Just
I
maybe,
can't get a truck or my cars. I can't get anything in it. It's small. for
yeah,
me.
by our modern standards it is. And,
Right.
yeah, that's one of the reasons we can find an undue hardship in order to justify your variance is you're not asking for something that's outrageous.
Right.
But you're pretty confident that you can remove the existing garage and restore the land there to the extent that you're not paving over it, without blowing out the bluff and having it all
right.
fall down into the
Right.
DOT's land.
I
Yeah,
think that garage is only about 20 feet from the slope, we'll call it,
yeah.
which makes it non-conforming right off the bat, let alone it's not in my yard. So, yeah, I mean, I can, if I can't, I don't have anywhere else I could put it. First I was gonna move it back toward where that Pouts.
Yeah.
Another garage would be great, but I'm over that. And I don't think a neighbor's gonna be stepping up to move it. But,
Hope springs eternal.
right.
Yeah. Anybody else?
What are you thinking for a surface for your driveway?
Most of it would be blacktop, ideally, except for the apron or something in front that we talked about.
Okay, so you could slope that in a more favorable way to collect the water then obviously, rather than
Correct.
have it run down the hill,
Correct.
okay?
And I had a neighbor that, I think he must have gone through the process. He's also in the Riverway. I don't know how long ago he did his garage, but he's got quite a bit of rip rock. I don't know how that slows the water or what it does ultimately for a 25-year event, but that's what they made him do, just a pile of limestone boulder.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that case, and there was a substantial concern about a washout. And
he's
that's why
he's
the
much
riprap.
closer to the bluff than I'm proposing,
Yeah, yeah.
which is, why, but.
Well, every case stands on its own, and there are unique factors. I certainly don't remember
Right.
that case in enough detail to be of any help. Well, I think we might be at the end of the hearing. Did anybody else want to testify? There's nobody here except staff people and Mr. Lodge, so I guess the phantoms are not going to be testifying. And you've said all you wanted, Mr. Wozniak?
Yes.
And you have a proposed decision document based on approval, I presume?
I do. I have some hard copies I can distribute and give Mr. Lodge a copy and pull it up on the screen as well.
Yeah, okay, good. Let me just close the hearing then at 9:17. So we won't take any more testimony. We won't take any more documentary evidence. That's what that means. We'll work with what we have to try to make a decision. Or if for some reason we can't and we defer to a different date, that'll be another matter to be dealt with. Let me just test my thinking about something with you, Mr. Cheezit. I don't think we'd be playing fair and still be on safe ground as to the DNR's consent if we went ahead and said that the applicant could keep the existing garage or could change the side setback to 5 feet. Maybe the latter would be okay, but the former, I think, would not be legally safe. What do you think?
Correct, Mr. Chair. I think that the public notice that was provided covers for any reduction of a side yard setback. However, in that the application talks about removing that existing garage, I think the applicant's gonna wanna do that anyway to be able to access the new garage, because he's gonna have to be driving where the existing one is. And that could have a different impact on the DNR's opinion. So I think the Board of Adjustment should evaluate the application on its merits and as it was submitted.
Why don't you take us through your draft then, Mike? And we'll just note any pause once in a while, and if anybody on the board has things to say, they can slip it in.
Certainly, and if you have any questions, would like me to pause, please let me know. As is customary with these draft decision documents we prepare, we include some findings of fact and conclusions of law, as well as a decision that we're putting forward as a suggestion to the board with suggested conditions. The basic information in the findings mimics what was in the staff report, and I won't detail all of it, but I will clarify that we're being clear the variance request to the Riverway, applicable Riverway Overlay District requirement for structure side yard setback of 25 feet. The applicant, we note the applicant has requested to build a 30-foot by 50-foot detached garage, and our interpretation was to within 5 feet of that east line of his property. And again, I think somehow he was trying to project, he wanted to have at least 10 feet of separation from between structures on the two properties. But from a staff standpoint, that's how we interpreted it and believed it was represented. We think it's pretty clear that this project wouldn't have any visual impact on the river. And so that, that's a typical concern with any proposed alterations or new construction in the Riverway Overlay District. Under the conclusions of law, you'll see in the bottom, towards the bottom of the first page here, on the statement, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship on the applicant. We note that the Holton has many unique lots and existing structures and that essentially are non-conforming, while Admiral, the setbacks and lot sizing often make it impossible to modify and add any new improvements on parcels such as the Lodge property. This request is keeping consistent with Holton, with the character. No impacts from the river on the building related to the building or drainage are anticipated. The location of the building allows for any future septic expansion. The soil testing and design have been done. And lastly, the requested variance would allow a side yard setback at 5 feet in character with the neighborhood.
Okay, let me just interrupt right there.
Certainly.
Seems sensible. I think for the reasons stated concerning the DNR consent letter, we're going to have to stick with the 10 feet. That was the original application. And I think that we should also mention that 10 feet is the minimum in order to achieve a 40-foot setback from that bluff. Now, that's not a river bluff. It's a highway cut bluff. Nevertheless, it is an important geological feature or topographical feature from the standpoint of stability of slopes and erosion and such like that. So it seems to me that is a justification for our granting the variance to the 10-foot level.
Well, the only thing I would, I guess, note on that is his, Mr. Lodge's site plan, it includes a dimension that's showing 10 feet between structures on the adjoining properties, and not 10 feet back from his east property line. That was my understanding in looking. I can pull up that drawing if you'd like.
Gee, I thought the application was for a 10-foot side yard setback, a variance from 25 to 10. And I think that's the way the DNR understood it. Let me search their letter to see if I can pull that out.
All right. Yeah, well, exactly. I'm pulling up your application, Anthony, yeah. I'm just pulling up the
Does anybody else find it?
the application submitted by Mr. Lodge that was part of the packet.
Oh, there he'd be asking for 2.5 feet, the setback from the house. The setback that the house has from the property line, according to Mrs. Humchild's testimony.
This here was a drawing that I was referring to, and again,
Oh,
this was part of his application. This was referred to the DNR. And
okay, gee, I misunderstood that from the beginning. I thought we were going 10 feet from the side yard. This is the first time I've ever seen a setback that is from a neighbor's property, and that's not the way our ordinance is written.
What I was trying to state, and maybe not as clearly as I intended, was our staff interpreted this as a minimum of 5 feet from the common property line, because that would, 5 feet on either side, would achieve the minimum 10 separation.
Did that come up in your conversation with Sue Van Angenberg of the DNR?
When we met, we went over the application, and I honestly can't recall if we got down to that level of specificity, because at that point, Sue did not appear to be particularly concerned about that in this situation, adhering to that 25-foot. Again, that's not an NR 118 requirement.
Yeah, I can see how that, why would she be telling us what we can do with something
It's not a direct view to the river, as many of our riverway situations are.
That is a scale drawing there, is it? Is that 30 by 50 garage laid out to the same scale as the survey that underlies it?
Yes.
Mr. Lodge said yes. Okay. Maybe we're going to have to reopen the hearing here.
But
So-
my interpretation is just as what was presented. I noticed it was 5 feet and plus 5 feet, 10 on the map earlier.
Ah,
So I didn't question that.
so do you think it's what, 30 for the garage, 40 for the line there to the slope? That's 70, and 5 more is 75. What is the width of this lot?
66 feet.
66. So 5 plus 30 is 35, from 66 is what, 19?
I just comment too, the reason in the decision document where I note the variance request, the reason I was specific about that 5 foot is you have to be clear about, if you decide to grant this variance, how much of a variance you're granting.
Absolutely.
that's the way staff interpreted what was being asked for.
Okay, so I guess we would have 31 feet from that bluff left over if we did a side yard setback of 5 feet. And that would provide 5 feet from the back wall of the garage to the property line for the fill that Mr. Lodge proposes in there. Okay, well, let's go on.
Regarding proving unnecessary hardship based on conditions unique to the property rather than personal considerations and of the property owner, we note that the property is narrow and impacted by riverway standards. The existing garage was constructed partially on an adjacent parcel, but predating any of the current regulations. And the applicant is attempting to fix that issue. DOT setbacks severely curtail building options. The property is only 66 foot wide, and with riverway slopes and bluff area along the western side, the establishment of the highway easement was not a result of actions of past owners or the current property owner. In terms of whether it would not be contrary to the public interest, the variance allows the new accessory building to be complying with slope setback, and the variance allows the building to be on the actual lot.
If I can interrupt there, what
Yeah.
slope setback would it be complying with?
Well, the way this was packaged, I think it was staff's understanding that from that actual top of bluff that the structure would meet the 40-foot setback.
Well, now we realize it's 31 feet. But there is no 40-foot setback requirement because it's not a river bluff, right? What, do we have a bluff setback requirement? Yeah, we do, for non-riverway in our, or at least we used to. I remember one long ago. What is the setback from a 12% slope when it's not a riverway requirement? Am I thinking about this wrong, Jason? Does the riverway 40-foot setback apply here? No, if it did, Sue Van Langenberg couldn't have approved this.
Yeah, that would be right.
So just I've got the LiDAR map up here, and using that 40-foot measurement off from the northwest corner of the existing garage to the new garage, the actual bluff for the highway construction, I believe, starts about 18 feet farther to the, I'll call it northwest or west. So really, and that I believe that measurement is closer to 58 or 60 feet. But that is a bluff that is not directly sloped or pitched towards the river. It's pitched towards the old Highway 64. And so that would not be a bluff that we would have the 40-foot setback on, if that helps.
And our ordinary bluff setback requirement for non-riverway zoning is less than 40 feet.
Correct.
Yeah, the riverway zoning is more strict than the normal requirements.
Yeah, so a bluff is defined as the top of a slope preservation zone, which is a 12% slope or greater that is directly facing or draining towards the river. So that's the definition of a bluff. This bluff here in particular drains, I'll call it to the north or towards Old Highway 64 and the Loop Trail now.
Well, I might suggest that for point number 3, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, that we make just a couple of modifications. The one, by indicating that the slope setback we're talking about is our ordinary slope setback, not our riverway slope setback. And that the landscaping to deal with the impervious surfaces will be an improvement over the existing, well, I guess it won't be an improvement. At best, it'll hold the line because of all the additional driveway. Well,
I think that makes sense in terms of clarifying that
yeah.
response to that criteria.
So we'll say we could add something to 3 that in order to not be contrary to the public interest, the land use permit will require surface water management for all new impervious surface. Am I getting out on a limb, board members, that you don't want to be on? Yeah. Is somebody making notes here on the staff so that we can possibly make these changes on the fly and get it approved today, rather than have to put it for next month?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I just note, we also note under number 4 that the, in terms of not granting a variance that has the effect of granting or increasing any use of property which is prohibited, that the accessory structure would be allowed, residential accessory structure would be an allowed use. We just note the property, residential property that's 900 feet from the river with no impact in terms of impact, direct impact on the river.
Okay, the rest seems straightforward to me.
Our responses to the ordinance criteria you can see on these items are somewhat mimic some of what we noted for the Supreme Court criteria. I think that what it comes down to is the property's constricted, and the desire for a attached garage that actually sits on his own property, albeit a larger one, seems like a reasonable use of the property. But given the small size and constraints, it's that were established predating the controls, I think it would be hard to achieve it without a variance to that side setback. And it's keeping it as far away from the drainage concerns as possible, given that kind of structure. If you have any thoughts on any of these statements, we feel free to bring it up. Otherwise, we also note the letter from Susan Langenberg, and offering the written consent from DNR, so that's not an obstacle for your granting a variance in this case, in this situation. The decision, we set this action up suggesting approval by the board of a variance to the 25-foot side yard setback to allow the detached garage to be located within 5 feet of the east line, subject to 4 conditions noted. I note that if this variance is granted, Mr. Lodge will have to get approval from the town of St. Joseph. They have a 10-foot requirement, so he would have to get a variance granted from the town. Otherwise, he would have to adhere to 10 feet. And then obtain a building permit from the town as well. These conditions, we're indicating a land use permit would be required that would provide details on the site plan, building plans, elevation drawings. We do consider color palette in the riverway as well, and then erosion control, revegetation, and the stormwater management as discussed by the board in your deliberation. We're indicating that work on the project should be initiated within 1 year from date of Board of Adjustment approval and completed within 2 years. And the existing detached garage, we had a requirement put in here that it shall be removed within 6 months of completion of the new garage. And that could be at the discretion of the board, but since it was proposed that that was the intent, we thought it appropriate to include such a requirement. And then lastly, the standard provision, the applicant shall be responsible for securing any necessary local, state, federal, or permits, licenses, or approvals. This would, in this case, this would cover that need to obtain a variance if required by the town of St. Joseph and building permit from the town of St. Joseph as well. Any questions or thoughts on this? Staff would be happy to respond.
Anybody want to take the lead? Otherwise, I've got some proposed edits consistent with the prior discussion. Let's see how you're doing, Jason, and see if you and I agree. I think I withdraw my comments with regard to sub 7 sub 1. So that, I think, is okay as is. You agree with that? That's on page 3 of the decision. Well, I don't know. The whole thing is page 3. The page numbers aren't useful. Okay. In the findings of fact and conclusions of law, there are 7 points, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 sub-points. I was proposing a change to sub-point 1. I'm no longer proposing that.
Okay.
Okay. But to sub-point 3, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. I propose 2 things. The first is, in the first sentence, the variance allows the new accessory building to be complying with, I propose we say, the ordinary slope setback, or whatever words mean the same thing.
That's exactly what I've got, Mr. Chair. And then I put in parentheses after that period, not a riverway bluff setback.
Fair enough. The other change I have, I think, which is a big part of our public interest aspect of this, would be a new sentence. Surface water will be managed, or something on that order to set the stage for a change in the decision section where we require surface water management for all new impervious surface.
What I had there, Mr. Chair, was the applicant's land use permit will require management of all impervious surface water runoff on the lot.
All, you said.
All, yep.
And would you put that in both at 3, the one we were just talking about with the slope, and use exactly the same language over in the decision in paragraph 1A?
Well, I changed that a little bit, Mr. Chair, and so since this setback, has been reduced below the 10 feet, we're talking 5 feet now. Underneath, sub A there, I said, provide a survey grade, a site plan, building plan, and elevation drawings to document proposed building construction, modification of paved areas, proposed site grading, including erosion control, revegetation, and stormwater management improvements. So that was all the same, except for that survey grades, just so, because we're dealing with the lot lines, our GIS mapping's not real close. There's been numerous encroachments over the years, so I think it would help them to have a survey there. Then, relating to number 3 above, I had stormwater management shall be for all impervious surface on the property for a 25-year storm event. If
Got
that's
it.
what the board intended.
Am I seeing a few nods here? And we're more or less ready for a motion then? What? Greg is saying, finally, finally. He's seen 3 clients show up at his business, knock on the door, find him not there, and leave in disgust while we've been talking.
Oh, there's a sign there.
Oh, there is. Okay, sorry about that. We do want to get it right, and we may be setting precedent now. I would note that well, I'm not going to go there. Are we ready for the motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the amended decision and of findings and so, whatever you call it.
The whole thing.
Findings, conclusions, and decision of the zoning board of adjustments for the Anthony Lodge property.
I'll second.
Mr. Peterson, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lodge. Thank you. We have one more little matter, and then Mr. Small has to go to his dentist, so. And that is the finalizing of the language for the Rome decision that we took last month. A few days ago, Mr. Wozniak sent me a proposal, which is in your packet there. But I didn't feel that I could sign it, because I didn't think we'd left it that way, that it was up to me to agree to the changes. I thought it needed the rest of you to approve the language. You'll remember that this is the one on Bass Lake where the Rome property, which is bigger than the neighbor's property. The neighbor came in and testified that he thought this was a great idea. But the Rome property is essentially a former cottage that has been added to and part of it has a second story on it. And for various reasons, the water now practically laps up on the pilings of the deck. And the proposal was that they would build an addition to make the totals that would be added on, that would have a garage. The property does not currently have a garage. And the second story of the garage would be living space, and it would be connected, as I say, and would have the stairway appropriate for the whole new house, or the whole house as amended. The DNR noted how undesirable it is to have a property right at the water line. And I think that was the primary factor in there, saying that they did not recommend that we find all the appropriate conditions necessary to grant the variance, and the variance is from the ordinary high water mark, of course. But in the course of our discussion, it became apparent that there are several reasons why we might be able to find the appropriate public value in doing it the way the applicant proposed, if the applicant were also willing to deal with all the surface water runoff from all the impervious, old and new, and to the 25-year storm setback, 25-year storm event. And the applicant indicated that he was willing to do that, and that would be built into the land use permit that the staff would issue for him. Now, it's not a light thing to make a decision that flies in the face of the DNR and its setbacks from lakes and navigable waters. And so when Mike gave me this, I thought maybe we could do an even better job of documenting this so that we don't set a bad precedent and get ourselves in set up our successors for problems. So I have this thought, or these I think they're just 4 things total. Does anybody want to say anything first? I don't mean to dominate the discussion. Sorry about that. Okay, the first is on the first page, and I see they are labeled appropriately this time. On page 1, item 7, sub 1. Look at the italicized words. The applicant's proposed dwelling expansion requiring approval of the requested variance is endeavoring to, just put your finger right there for a moment, while minimizing visual and environmental impacts on Bass Lake. Now, the proposed language says accommodate family needs, but it seems to me we'd be better off saying to be the size of a typical house. The existing house is small. The proposed addition is not huge. It brings the total up to a typical house for our modern world and a lakeside property. The problem with saying to the existing language to accommodate family needs is that it might be misinterpreted by somebody reading this decision to think we're talking about this family with their, was it 3 children or 4 children? With their number of children. I think we've all, in our training, we all learned the applicant's individual family circumstances are not a factor. We must make our decisions as though the approval we give today is going to be right in perpetuity for every family that ever lives there, big or small, young or old, whatever, with the single exception of handicap, where handicap accessibility comes in. That's a whole nother set of law. But we have to put out of our minds when we are looking at a particular applicant how big their family is, whether they've got old people in the family and young people in the family. Well, I don't want to beat it to death. You all remember that, don't you? Mm-hmm. And that I think is where it is right for us to be making decisions based on the size of a typical house in our modern world. I think that's one reason we were chosen as board members, is because we are thought to know what our community values are, what's typical in our community. So I would suggest the substitution of the words so it would read, endeavoring to be the size of a typical house.
Mr. Chair, I'd also just say that better speaks to the fact they're asking to make reasonable use of the property.
Exactly. Yep, good one. Okay. The next one I have is in number 3 on the same page. And it's a whole new sentence. It's very similar, and maybe we want to use actually the nice succinct language that that Mr. Cheeza came up for the case we just dealt with. But what I proposed to say was a new sentence at the end of 3, which has to do with the public interest. The applicant has voluntarily offered very significant surface water management detention landscaping that will deal with the runoff from the old and new impervious surfaces in a 25-year rain event. But he found a much more succinct way to say it, but do you agree with me that that was one of the major factors why we are willing to leave that building at the river, at the lake?
Yeah.
Because the roof runoff is gonna be captured and dealt with, and it's not now. You have pushback, Mike, or are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that. I mean, I think that's speaking to better managing the impact of the improvements
In the
proposed.
public interest.
Yes.
In terms of water quality of Bass Lake. And no one would deny that this property drains to Bass Lake. Okay, the next thing I have, and it's next to the last, is on page 2, item number 5, sub 1, where we may not grant a variance for a hardship based solely on economic gain or loss. Again, look at the italicized language. This request does not appear to be based solely on an economic gain or loss as, and put your finger right there, will the present language, I think, could be improved by inserting instead from there to the end, expanding upwards would cost the same or less. Okay, in this case, we all agreed that the law allows them to expand on the footprint, and that would mean raising it up in order to achieve the additional livable area, and that would be highly visible from the lake. You know, we didn't get much testimony on it, but I think common sense tells us that the cost of expanding upward would be significant. They'd almost certainly have to beef up the supports, the load-bearing walls of the first level to support a new second level. So it wouldn't be cheap to raise it straight up, just as it's not cheap to build landward the way they propose. So it doesn't appear that the landward proposal was being offered as a way to save money. You following me? Mike, do you have a pushback on that?
No, I agree. I mean, from a practical standpoint, knowing what I know of building construction, if you look at the existing foundation and footings of that structure as it sits, I mean, it would just have to be substantially beefed up, given that you're essentially all sand underneath that structure. And putting a much heavier building that close to the water is a questionable endeavor.
Okay.
It can be done, anything can be engineered, but
Okay. So the substituted words would be expanding upwards would cost the same or less. So this is not about economic gain or loss. And the last proposal I have is in
Mr. Chair, I would like to take and add one other suggestion where it says the approval or denial. Since we're in our conclusion of law section of this document and we're trying to support the decision of the Board of Adjustment to approve of this variance request, I think we can remove or denial in that because, and that we just want it to be for the approval.
I'm not following exactly where it is. What, are you
So-
on page 2?
5 sub I or sub 1 there, what I've got is to take, the request does not appear to be based solely on economic gain or loss, as expanding upwards would cost the same or less, and the approval of the request will not change how the property is used. So what I really removed there was or denial, because we're trying to support the Board of Adjustment approving. So we're not questioning or on the fence anymore. the board has said that they want to move forward with the approval.
Well, I was going to eliminate, quite frankly, that whole, the approval or denial of the request will not change how the property is utilized. I don't see that as pertinent to the question of economic gain or loss. So the words that I proposed would have addressed gain or loss. The words change how the property is utilized doesn't relate to gain or loss. I mean, we don't have the authority to change a use.
Yeah.
Can you live with replacing?
Yep. So you just want to have, so then would we just say that the request does not appear to be based solely on economic gain or loss, as expanding upwards would cost the same or less, period?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay with that?
Yep, yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, and the last change is very small, and it's in the very next section, Roman numeral 2. The applicant's request is dictated by the location of the existing structure and the topography of the site, and it's made a convincing argument that the proposed landward expansion, insert, and landscaping will be less impactful on Bass Lake and provide a result more consistent with the intent of the shoreland ordinance. I'm using the phrase "and landscaping" to stand for all that surface water management to the 25-year storm stuff. That's what I have. Did anybody have any other ideas on this, or any pushback? Anybody think some of that was extraordinarily stupid idea? In that case, I think we'd be ready for a motion to approve this language, and with those changes, I would sign it on your behalf. Motion?
So move we approve a variance as amended by staff.
I'll second it.
Discussion, debate? All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's unanimously approved. Thank you all for your help and your attention.
I'm sorry, who seconded that motion?
Joe did, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Mr. Peterson made the motion, and Mr. Miller got the glory of seconding it. Bask in your glory there, Mr. Miller. I think that takes care of our business. What else can we find to talk about today? We gotta make sure we put on our calendars a potential next meeting. Do we have some potential business for next month? Might not be a meeting next month?
Yeah, we haven't received any applications, so unless you have other business to conduct. Now, the only thing, Jason, I'm not sure where we're at with Mr. Swanson.
Yeah, so David Swanson was an applicant along the St. Croix River a couple months back. He has been working with Susan at the DNR to try to come up with a new proposal that the DNR would consent to potentially. But the last I know is that they still had not come up to an agreement on something that they would consent. So we don't have any applications pending right now because David's working that out with Susan.
Are we gonna need a hearing on his revised application?
Absolutely. It'll require a whole new notice and everything when that application comes forward.
It will be substantially different than, if one comes forward, than what he proposed previously.
So we can't possibly have that one ready for next month?
No, it won't be ready for next month. I do have a couple announcements too that I can provide when the board is ready.
Right, I think we're ready now.
Okay. So on Tuesday night, the county board will be considering the county administrator's appointment of Alicia Snyder from the town of Troy to be another board member on the Board of Adjustment here. And then there is a couple other contenders or interested parties in being the other alternate. So there's a possibility that we could have a full Board of Adjustment and alternate panel in the near future. Also, I would like to let the board know that I did get contacted by Susan in regards to the amended Chapter 17 ordinance for the county, which is the Lower St. Croix ordinance, and she didn't really have any problems with the proposed changes that we have in there. A lot of that is just to streamline it to NR 118, but one of the big changes and a positive for the St. Croix and the water quality is that 25-year stormwater calculation on any new impervious, so that basically anything moving forward would be mitigated. So that would be a positive to the St. Croix. That still has to go to public hearing through the committee and then would have to still go through the county board. But we should hear back from the DNR soon, and so we should have that completed for sure by the end of the year, so.
Outstanding.
Clarification on alternate, and Steve, when there's only 4 of us, shouldn't he be a voting member?
He would, except darn it, he and I are in the same town.
Well, move.
Yeah.
Well, does it, I mean, why have an alternate then, you know?
I've got to be gone for him to, which is why I hope
Can we
sometime I
change-
can resign.
Can we change that?
I
mean,
think that's in state law.
That's actually state law, and
Really?
that, so, yep.
I mean,
But before we were having,
so shouldn't the alternate be somebody who isn't from representing an area from the board?
Well, the
Then
beautiful,
why have him here?
well,
so,
yeah, we view it as a training exercise
Well,
for him and
right,
maybe,
I understand,
yeah.
but again, we're supposed to eliminate a possibility of a tie also.
Yeah, it's, you know, if I get hit by
So we-
one of Joe's trains on the way here, he could vote.
He could, but I'm just
Or
saying,
if
when,
I'm out.
when the alternate's being appointed, shouldn't it be from a area that's not already represented?
Ideally.
so, yeah, ideally it would. We haven't had a lot of interest to serve on the Board of
Right.
Adjustment lately, and so, that's where, and that Steve would help fill in case Buck was
Right.
gonna be
Oh, I
gone, and so,
understand that,
yep.
but, you know,
I assume
We,
that Ken just decided, hey, look at this Malik character has been here for going on 20 years and he's 82 years old and he's not gonna be here forever. Let's find his successor.
yeah.
well, you could be president.
No.
Yeah,
What we did now in that to try to take and get more candidates to the BOA was that we reached out to the towns. And so we contacted the town chairs and the town clerks and asked them to see if they had anybody in that within their town. Now, we only sent that out to the towns and that could serve, you know, on the BOA. But that is where our new candidates have come from.
Sure. Okay.
It's not an easy position and it's not a fun board necessarily to be
it's a
on.
fun
So we
board.
appreciate everything that you guys do.
do I hear a masochist
You
speaking?
see, I got my mic on, I said that.
Yeah,
This is a comparative thing compared to a normal county board meeting.
and actually, Steve would rather be here than sitting in a dental chair, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
See, so,
Well, I just wanted to
As you
get
say,
you
it's relative.
involved.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
well, we're devolving into frivolity, I guess, so we have no more actual business. You got a couple of documents for me to sign? Great. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for your continued dedication, for doing your homework. I know it isn't the most exciting thing.
Also of note, maybe we should note that the governor's opener for Minnesota is in Stillwater next year on the St. Croix River, so I don't know if we want to start protective action there.
That's enough of that. Okay, bye, everybody.